There's generally a pretty regular flow of reports which are produced by one firm of accountants or another, and these turn up in the accountancy press on a pretty regular basis. This one caught my eye and I thought I would share it with you. It's to do with the spike in payment of dividends in the run-up to the 5th of April 2016. Moore Stephens reported that a higher proportion of business profits had been paid out in dividends, and they attempted to explain the reasons why. The two hot favourites were either the changes to the taxation of dividends or alternatively the concern of business owners about the results of the EU referendum. Now, I don't know about you, but I think the EU referendum argument could be used either to explain why more dividends are paid out or less. In my view, we all react to short-term changes, and it's all about saving tax. So just to recap, in case you haven't heard what happened at the 5th of April, prior to that date, most companies paid small salaries and then dividends. The salary was to use up the personal allowance, the dividend was to utilise the basic rate band. And the net result was that as long as you didn't go into higher rates of tax, you paid no income tax ever. For dividends received after the 5th of April 2016, you get a tax-free allowance for the first £5,000 of dividends, so they're effectively tax-free. There's then revised rates of tax, and the net result is that if you were on a small salary dividend strategy and paid no tax last year, you're going to end up paying about £2,000 this year. There will no longer be a tax credit attached to dividends, and the rates of tax have risen by 7.5% across the board. So basic rate taxpayers will pay tax at 7.5% on the dividends received. Higher rate taxpayers 32.5% compared to 25% previously. And if you are lucky enough to be in the additional rate, you'll pay 38.1% compared to 30.56%. So if you're on a small salary dividend strategy, you have to come to the conclusion that the revenue don't like you. But look at it this way. You've been parking at a broken parking meter for the last number of years, and somebody's now come along and fixed the meter, and we're all complaining. Just be thankful they're not charging us for all that free parking over the last few years. The new measures were brought in to combat what they saw as some tax avoidance by small business owners, but there is a serious side effect, and this will be that business owners are now going to have to take out more money from their businesses, which as a result will have less money available to reinvest and to grow and develop. So coming back to the Moore Stephens report, we shouldn't be at all surprised that there was a spike in the payment of dividends. None of us like paying tax, and we'll use all legal means to keep the tax we pay to a minimum. So we paid a dividend before the 5th of April, just like many of you. It's only reasonable and quite logical that we should have done so. And it is all about keeping our businesses efficient and minimising outgoings. But when I was considering what Moore Stephens had written, it struck me that there was another question. How did they compile these figures? Who did they ask? They didn't ask us. Did they ask you? How large was the sample? What assumptions did they make? What size of businesses was it that they asked? I have no doubt that their conclusions are correct, because it only seems logical that it should be so. But how did they compile this information? It then raised the question in my mind, what about these business statistics that you see published in the media generally by big firms like KPMG, Deloitte and various other ones? Do the results actually represent what you and I do? Is it only relevant to larger businesses? I think at the end of the day, we need to use a measure of skepticism when reading these reports and consider whether they actually apply to us. I'm Alan Long from the Long Partnership, making life less taxing.